Hey, this is Splash of Gas with Dave Weichert, a NASCAR podcast. Still can't believe there's only 2 races left in the NASCAR season, but boy, was there a good time had this past weekend at Talladega. Trucks, Xfinity, and Cup would all be in action. Super shout out to Mike Harmon Racing. Splash of Gas stickers would be on the 74 Truck and Xfinity car this weekend. Thank you to Caleb Costner and Carson Ware, who goes home to bring the 74 Xfinity car home P21. All 3 series would be in action for their second race of the round of 8 in the playoffs. Having 2 episodes this week with all the exclusive Splash of Gas coverage. Storylines for the weekend, starting with trucks. After Corey Heim punched his ticket to Phoenix at the Roval, will a playoff driver be the second to lock themselves into the Final Four, or will someone else nab a surprise win? Xfinity stakes are getting higher. Can Creed, Kvapil, or Smith put themselves out of their playoff point hole with a win? Or can part-time Joe Gibbs driver Aric Almirola keep his winning ways? Yellow flag, green flag, paint scheme of the week, playoff breakdown going into Martinsville, interview with Jesse Love, discussions with Dave, Fast Davey's bets, and so much more on this episode of Splash of Gas. As always, we're sponsored by Magical Travel with Dave, aka Disney Dave Weichert, my father. He will be able to help you with all your Disney and Universal vacation needs. He can be reached at DisneyDaveW@Verizon.net. Please make sure you follow all the Splash of Gas social medias for midweek and on-track updates. Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube are all Splash of Gas with Dave Weichert. Now for the Truck Series recap from Dega. Trucks would be in action Friday afternoon on Fox. With the playoffs in full swing, who would take home the trophy in the primetime spot? After qualifying, Gio Ruggiero would be on the pole, followed by Ty Majeski making up the front row. Once the green flag would fly, 2 early cautions in Stage 1 that would have playoff implications. Grant Infinger's day ends early as Lane Riggs also gets damage. Playoff driver Raja Caruth goes on to win the first stage. J.J. Yeley and Ruggiero restart for the second stage. On lap 32, a Lane Riggs flat would cause the field to check up, resulting in Brett Holmes going hard into the wall. Ruggiero and Caruth would race to the line. With a big push from Caden Honeycutt, Gio Ruggiero wins Stage 2. Tanner Gray and Parker Kligerman would restart for the final stage. After a pit cycle, Ruggiero and Corey Heim would be first and second. Scary scene on lap 65 when the engine of longtime driver Norm Benning would expire. He would be able to get out of the truck and speak to the media after. Glad to see that Norm was okay. This would set up Gio Ruggiero and Luke Fenhaus side by side up front with laps to go. Fenhaus would get too much of a push from his teammate Ben Rhodes, sending Luke spinning and putting the race into overtime. Ruggiero and Corey LaJoie start side by side in the OT. Gio would get a big push from his teammate Corey Heim, and Gio Ruggiero would secure his first Truck Series win. More on the playoff standings later in this episode and predictions for the Final Four after Martinsville in the second episode this week. Now, trivia question time. This episode's question is, with NASCAR going to Martinsville next weekend, about how many Martinsville hot dogs are sold on a NASCAR weekend at Martinsville Speedway? Answer coming at the end. Now for the Xfinity Series recap from Talladega. Xfinity would be in action Saturday as they tackle Dega. Jesse Love, who we will hear from shortly, would be on the pole after being fastest in qualifying. William Sawalich would be second fastest as the 2 make up the front row to green. Carnage early on lap 15 as Sheldon Creed gets turned, which would collect 11 others. Nick Sanchez and Austin Hill restart. Hill gets ahead and wins stage 1. Dean Thompson and Kyle Sieg restart up front for the second stage. Just like in the first stage, the yellow would fly late in stage 2. This time on lap 45 when Leland Honeyman spins collecting 5 others. Again, another sprint to the stage finish. Austin Hill shows his drafting skills, nabbing the second stage win. Christian Eckes and Daniel Dye restart for the third and final stage. By lap 63, Austin Hill would work his way back to the front. With the laps counting down, the yellow would fly for the last time on lap 93 when Aric Almirola, Sammy Smith, and Jeb Burton make contact, collecting several others. This will put the race into overtime. Hill and fan of the podcast, good old buddy Josh Williams, restarts up front. Could anyone catch Austin Hill? Unfortunately, Williams runs out of gas, flipping to the reserve switch a little bit too late. Carson, Kvapil, and Justin Allgaier both make surges but could not catch the rocket ship that Hill had on Saturday night. We'll have all the Cup Series recap and breakdown of that race in our second episode this week. Quick look back at the predictions we made for Truck and Xfinity. Trucks went with Brent Holmes. He gets caught in a wreck and finishes 28th. Xfinity, I tapped Aric Almirola to win 2 in a row. He did not. Crashes and finishes 24th. Now for yellow flag, green flag. Trucks, yellow. Tough day for Grant Enfinger. He wrecks out early, putting him in a must-win situation at Martinsville. Truck Series, green. Gio Ruggiero nabs his first win. He has been close throughout this season in his rookie year with Tricon Garage and the Truck Series. Exciting to see his hard work pay off. Congratulations, Gio. Xfinity, yellow. Had him on the show a couple weeks ago, and not any doing to his own, but Sam Mayer finishes last, getting caught in one of the first wrecks, putting him down 22 points going into Martinsville. Can he rebound? Xfinity, green flag, Josh Williams. Guy has tough season this year. Doing his best at college racing. They give him the hook, trying to piece it together at the end with big thanks to J.R. Pine from Alloy, plus other great sponsors as Optum, among others. He does flip the reserve fuel switch a little bit too late. He said that was a veteran error post-race, but good for Josh. Finishes 14th, top 15 at Talladega. Great for him to rebound after getting the hook from college racing. Happy for him. Hope he can continue his great runs throughout Martinsville and in Phoenix, and of course, throughout next season. Now for our exclusive Splash of Gas interview with Richard Childress, Xfinity driver Jesse Love. Spoke to Jesse on Friday before they were doing the tech inspection for Xfinity at Talladega. He was awesome to talk to. Here's what he had to say. Next driver we bring on the Splash of Gas, a driver of the number 2 for Richard Childress Racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, is Jesse Love. Thanks for joining the show, Jesse.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to spend the time with you guys while we're sitting here in Alabama going through tech.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Sweet. Appreciate the update with that. Best of luck with that throughout the day. Before we get into this current season, you made your splash on the national scene with Venturini and the ARCA circuit. We know they're closing and selling the Nitro. With Venturini being such a powerhouse in ARCA for so long, how does it feel to be a part of that?
Yeah, it's definitely great. I remember walking into Venturini. Geez, 5 years ago now. Billy's joke is, I've had a name on one of those cars since I was, 13 years old. So I remember when I first walked in there and, was just kind of hoping to be like Corey Heim or Christian Eckes or, Chandler Smith and win a championship for them and have some banners hung up on the wall. Obviously they hang, win banners up with the driver's picture and face on it and all that stuff. And, for a while I didn't have one, right? So I wanted to that was like my goal and my motivation running ARCA was to hang up the most banners of any driver outside of Bill that was racing for him, and obviously we were able to accomplish that, and that was really special, and came a long way in the process, learning from Billy and his whole development program. Billy is and probably always will be, but for the time that he was running Ventrini, he was the backbone of TRD's development system.
Awesome. Great group over there. I appreciate you touching upon that. This is your second full Xfinity season. How has it been racing for RCR and crew chief Danny Stockman?
Yeah, it's been great. Obviously, last year we, built up a lot of good building blocks to build off of going into this year. But yeah, we wanted more after last year, and we've been able to close that gap a lot this year. So, been competing for a lot more wins this year, and running up front more, obviously, in a really good spot in the points right now. So, yeah, obviously the goal is to win a championship, and we have a really good shot at doing that. So, just proud of the whole group for finding speed, and for me for obviously developing and getting better at my craft. So, yeah, just been a really good year, and obviously a lot of development on all fronts, and obviously it's really fun to be a part of something like that.
Sounds great. Getting into more detail from this year, you start the year on a hot start, winning in Daytona. Then you went on a tear in the regular season, getting 8 top 5s and 18 top 10 finishes. How were you able to find consistency through this season, and were there any changes to your game plan when the playoffs started in Bristol?
Yeah, not a big change, and obviously, yeah, it's been a pretty solid and steady year. Having kind of 1.5 wins, I guess, and obviously contending for a lot more than that. And the cards didn't quite fall our way in a lot of those scenarios, but I didn't really feel like I needed to change much going into the playoffs. Obviously, you kind of approach the round of 12 different from the round of 8, and the round of 8 different from the Final Four weekend. But for me, it's just about running my best race and having my best weekend that I can have. So that part never really changes. I'm always trying to just run my next best corner and run the best race that I can. So that part hasn't changed, and obviously it's served us well. Round of 12 was a little more hectic than I probably wanted it to be because of how Bristol went with having the flat tires and things like that. But still, going into this year, getting to the round of 8, it's been a really solid round for us.
Cool. Appreciate you touching on how hectic it was the round of 12. You with the 12th place finish at the Roval, you make the round of 8. Last weekend was Vegas. You were third there in the spring. Were you looking forward to going back to Vegas?
Yeah, definitely. Vegas is a place I feel like I know what I need in my car to have a shot at the win, and obviously we were in contention all night until last restart there when that went south. But yeah, Vegas is obviously a place that I enjoy going to. It's my favorite intermediate that we race at, so always have a lot of fun going there. And we were, I feel like, more of a threat this year than we were in the fall than we were in the spring. So obviously the progress is there, and that's always a positive thing.
Got it. You qualify 6th. It seems like guys had a solid game plan, and you get stage points early, finishing stage 1 third and stage 2 second. How was the number 2 of feeling at Vegas early and going into the third stage there, starting up front with Zilich?
Yeah, it was definitely, we knew we had a good car, capable of winning. I think the 19 was a little bit better than we were, but I feel like we were, second place car, and at times the 88 was a little bit better, but and at times we were better than the 19. So, I feel like me and Connor were kind of evenly matched, and then the 19 was definitely better than us on the short run, and then we were, better, or at least I was better on the long run than the 19. So, I felt pretty positive that if, the race were to have a real long green flag run or two, that, we were going to be pretty tough to hold off. Obviously, Aric does a really good job of, kind of keeping the lead with a car that's kind of falling off a little bit just because he's so disciplined and has so many laps. So, yeah, obviously the third stage was going our way for quite a while, and then, had a slightly bad pit stop and then a pretty bad restart at the end there. Just got put in some bad spots and started racing some people harder than we probably should have been. And obviously that let the 1988 get away, and that kind of did us in. But, looking back on it, we wouldn't change much. Probably make a different lane choice on the restart and, hopefully, get on off pit road a little bit faster without making any adjustments. And if we did that, we probably, would have left there a little bit happier, but it was obviously still a really good points day for us. And even though we didn't get the win, it's always good to run up front and contend for it.
Cool. Really appreciate you going into detail. Was going to ask you what you think you needed to get past 88 and 19, but seems like you will have a better plan next time there. But besides hard racing at the end with Sanchez, anything come from the post-race chat with him?
Not really. He obviously doesn't want to hear what anybody has to say. He'd rather just have that annoying smirk on his face. So obviously that's his choice, and nothing I can really do about that part. But obviously he's got to run as hard as he can to get the best finish he can possible, and obviously manage the balance with the other drivers how he sees fit. So yeah, we didn't really talk much after that. Obviously we were in the same post-race meetings and whatnot at the shop, but at the end of the day, if I'm upset with somebody, I'm going to tell them how I feel, and doesn't mean they have to listen or don't need to listen, right? They're gonna do as they see fit, but obviously is what it is, and haven't really put much thought into it after that.
Gotcha. No, appreciate you touching on that. Really interesting to see throughout this playoffs how non-playoff drivers have been racing the playoff drivers. But thank you for going over that. We know how good RCR's Xfinity program is on the super speedways between you and Austin Hill. Do you feel any added pressure when you pull up to these bigger tracks?
No, not really. I mean, obviously I know what to do here to, have a shot at the win and to close out at the end. So, Talladega has always been the track for me on the speedway stuff that my drafting style just works better with compared to like Daytona and Atlanta. And our car's really fast too. So I kind of feel like it's like a safety net at like Top Golf or something, right? My safety net is a little bit bigger than others because my car is so fast, and that allows me to be really aggressive.
Cool, that's a good analogy. Coming into Dega, you're third in the playoff standings with 20 points above the cut line. You were third there in the spring and were on the pole. What are your goals for this weekend at Dega, and how are you going to get that number 2 into the championship 4 in Phoenix?
Yeah, obviously winning would lock us in, so that's definitely the top priority. But I feel like, if we control what we can control and things, go our way in a sense that, we should be able to get our typical allotted amount of stage points at Talladega, which is anywhere from 15 to 20 stage points. And, I think that if we can do that, obviously we create a safety net for us at the end if we get caught in the big one or something. But definitely the goal is to lock ourselves in so we can go to Martinsville and take a deep breath and just focus on Phoenix at that point. Obviously having an extra week to focus on that racetrack would be really important, and I think if we can do that, then we'll be able to compete and run with the 7 and the 88 and the 19 are all going to be really good at Phoenix.
Sounds like a good game plan. How do you expect to be the aggressiveness racing on Saturday, especially at the end?
Yeah, I think typical Talladega is always, super aggressive, and I feel like at the end, the guys that are trying to lock into the Final Four are going to be overly aggressive and might put themselves in some bad spots. So for me, I just have to manage that for the other drivers and what they're going to do, and also kind of manage my own, mindset and stuff, not to, get too desperate and put myself in a bad spot.
Cool. Thank you so much for touching on all the on-track stuff. Last question, and all honesty, I've been wanting to ask you and Zillage each this one, but you guys each crack me up with the jokes that you poke fun at each other online. Who naps more than you, Connor Zillage?
Well, funny you say that. Connor's actually in my trailer with me right now.
Oh, that's funny.
he's laughing at you saying that. But I feel like, there's the Mount Rushmore of napping, and there's only one person up there, and it's probably Connor. I think between Connor and my dog, they probably nap more than the average person.
That's funny. Really appreciate that. Best of luck to you guys this weekend, and hope you guys have safe travels out there in Alabama, all right?
All right, thank you.
Yep, thanks, Jesse.
Hope everyone enjoyed the conversation I had with Jesse Love. Really neat to talk to him, to say the least. Now for discussions with Dave. First topic. We've been talking about Brendan Butterbean Queen this entire ARCA season. Went on to win the championship and rack up a whole number of wins throughout this year. We've also been talking who's going to fill up the lineup for Kaulig in their 5 Ram trucks in the Truck Series next year. Queen has recently made a number of Xfinity starts for Kaulig in their number 11 entry, and now there's no more speculating. Was announced this past week that Kaulig Racing will tap Butterbean Queen as its first Ram-backed driver for the 2026 season. This is a no-brainer slam dunk. Have spoken to Brandon on numerous occasions at Florence Motor Speedway, had him on the show during the ARCA Series testing at the beginning of this year. Just a genuine and real person, real racer. He's got a mullet. Every time he wins, he eats at Waffle House. The guy's just one of a kind, and he has that on-track skill that is like that as well. He showed that winning the Cars Tour, and now on the ARCA Series. What can Bean do in the Truck Series? Sky's the limit for Butterbean on this one. Bean Nation, rise up to the Truck Series. Next topic. If you're an RCR Xfinity fan, I'm sorry I've been harping on Austin Hill. But we saw Austin Hill just win in Talladega in the Xfinity Series. We were mentioned last episode, Austin Hill was eliminated, did not make the transfer from the round of 12 to the round of 8 by 21 points. He lost 21 playoff points when he was suspended for wrecking Aric Almirola in Indianapolis. Say if Hill holds his cool and doesn't get suspended, doesn't lose those points, he would be locked in for the championship 4 already. We have seen Hill in past years lock himself into the championship 4, being really good in the playoffs. This brings me to my next question. Who is better off, has better chances to win a championship for Richard Childress in Xfinity, Jesse Love, or Austin Hill? I think by Austin Hill getting suspended now and then in hand, the consequences are, he didn't make that transfer, didn't have enough playoff points. I think Jesse Love gives RCR a better chance to win an Xfinity championship at Phoenix. If you look at the stats, Hill's been there 7 times, scoring 1 top 5 and 7 top 10 finishes. Jesse Love, in a smaller sample size, only been to the track 3 times. All 3 times been in the top 10, with his best finish being second place in March of last year. Love's worst finish is 9th at Phoenix, and that was this March. The last 2 times Austin Hill has been to Phoenix, it was 37th and then 10th. You also have to look at the momentum that Jesse Love is bringing into these last 2 races in Martinsville and then into Phoenix. I wasn't expecting Jesse to have this much of a point buffer coming into the last 2 races of the season. Nonetheless, Love has shown out this playoffs. And just a question as a race fan, I posed to myself and was really going back and forth, and some of my buddies as well. So wanted to put it on the podcast. Hope it gives you all some food for thought. More silly season news on the Xfinity side. We've talked about a bunch of rumors for the driver lineup for Junior Motorsports next year in Xfinity. Was announced that Carson Kvapil and Connor Zilisch would share a ride next year. The the big news was that Kvapil wouldn't be full-time in 2026. Sammy Smith is coming back to Junior Motorsports on a full-time basis, just like Justin Allgaier. Rajah Caruth was announced that he will be on a part-time basis. Not sure if he will race in any of the series full-time next year, Rajah. Kind of wasn't sure if he was going to come back to Spire full-time in the trucks and run Xfinity part-time. Sounds like that still needs to get worked out. Last but not least, the lineup for the 9 car for JRM was announced between Ross Chastain and Shane Van Gisbergen. Excited to see those two race against the up-and-coming stars in the 2026 O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. Still got to get used to that. Won't be Xfinity next year. Sorry about that. Junior Motorsports is, by all means, bringing top talent to, what was the Xfinity Series, and for next year, the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. They had 4 full-time cars running for driver championships this year. Then they had the 9 car, kind of their all-star car. By the looks of it, it looks like they'll only have Justin Allgaier and Sammy Smith running for individual driver championships next year. That was a little bit of a head-scratcher for me. Not sure if more will be announced on the driver lineup, but I don't really get this move, going from 4 cars running for individual championships and going to 2. It's probably 100% a business move, and I'm sure there's a lot more detail and steps that went into this that we do not know about, right? Definitely a lot to break off and chew on this subject alone. Still, in 2026, Junior Motorsports is going to be competing for wins each and every weekend. That wraps up this episode's edition of Discussions with Dave. Moving right along onto the playoff breakdown for the trucks going into Martinsville. We'll have the final predictions on the final 4 in the second episode this week. Right now, let's look at the standings. Corey Heim already locked in. Second place, Rajah Caruth, plus 14. He's having a heck of a playoffs, Rajah. He originally was on my first 2 out. With how he was coming into the playoffs, he was a little bit cool. He has turned it right up and gotten stage points and great finishes. And that has given him that second place spot in that 14-point buffer. Third, Tyler Ankrum, plus 8. Those McAnally Higgleman trucks have had speed throughout this entire season. Daniel Hemrick, in all honesty, was the one of those 2 drivers I thought was just a lock to make the championship 4. And now between the 2 of them, Ankrum really has the best shot to make the championship 4. Great for Tyler. Then 4th, last spot, currently above the playoff cutoff line, Caden Honeycutt, plus 5. Caden had some tough luck at the end at the Roval, getting contact from Grant Infinger. He makes that up in Dega. We just saw Caden last December win the Snowball Derby. We know what he can do on the short tracks. Does that spell success for him in Martinsville? We will find out. Now the cutoff line. Outside looking in, 5th spot, Ty Majeski, minus 5. What can Mr. Short Track, Ty Majeski, do in Martinsville? Is he getting that 98 in victory lane? Is he getting stage points to bump either Ankrum, Honeycutt out? Who knows? I think he's going to have sure of a heck of a chance too. Lane Riggs, 1 point under Majeski. Lane, in a Front Row Motorsports truck, has, in all honesty, right below Corey Heim throughout this season and how strong he's been. He still has a chance, only 6 points out. Would need to hop over multiple drivers to get in the final 4, but believe Lane will have his chances in Martinsville. Now the drivers in 7th and 8th, Daniel Hemrick minus 32 and Grant Infinger minus 40. Both of them are in must-win situations. That much of a point gap for each of them is going to be impossible to overcome in Martinsville. Unfortunately for Grant, with that early wreck in Dega, Grant is an Alabama native. He's won at Talladega before. That was really his best chance to get a sniff of the championship four. He's been there in past years. It's going to be an uphill battle for Grant. Can he do it in Martinsville? It's going to be tough for him. Hopefully he can. Unsure. Hemrick, he won in Martinsville in the spring. So, he's going to have a chance. He had some luck in the spring as well. Some help from his teammate Ankrum. As they typically have been, truck race at Martinsville is going to come down to the third stage, bumping and banging, drivers feeling themselves out for a whole season, coming down to the final laps to make up the championship four. I'm so excited for Friday night. It's going to be an awesome race. Now, Xfinity. With two non-playoff drivers winning the first two races in the round of 8, Aric Almirola in Vegas, Austin Hill in Talladega, we have none of the 8 drivers technically locked in with a win. Connor Zilisch, plus 83. Justin Allgaier, plus 76. Jesse Love, plus 40. Those guys are practically locked in. I mean, if Love gets a few stage points in stage 1, he's going to be locked in at that point. But Allgaier, Zilisch, Love, those 3 spots are going to be taken. That leaves us one final spot. Right now, Carson Kvapil has that, plus 4. Kvapil, Sammy Smith, Brandon Jones, Sam Mayer, Sheldon Creed could each win this race, and I would not be surprised by all means. Between those 5, I believe you have to look below the cutoff line of those 5 drivers that would give you the best chance to win. Sammy Smith in the 5th spot, minus 11. Brandon Jones, minus 20. Sam Mayer, minus 22. Sheldon Creed, minus 41. The 2 of them that have the best chance, Brandon Jones, Sheldon Creed, they've shown in past seasons in very similar scenarios that they can hang. Unfortunately for each of them, they've been at the bad side of the bad luck and maybe a bad move at the end, but they have the experience. Each of them, Jones and Creed, been the veterans at this point in the Xfinity Series. Each different teams, different manufacturers, strongly believe that one of them is going to win this race and take that 4th and final playoff spot. We'll go over all my predictions and who I think is going to make the Final Four and who I think is going to win on Saturday in Xfinity in Episode 2. Now for Paint Scheme of the Week, Part 1. Carson Hocevar is having an awesome patriotic paint scheme in Martinsville. The 71 will be covered in the red, white, and blue. The stars, the red and white stripes. Car looks awesome. And on the hood is a kick-ass bald eagle ready to strike. Carson's partner sponsor for this paint scheme is Modo Casino. Shout out to them. Excited to see that 77 car on Sunday. Should look great. Now for NASCAR history time. Martinsville, September 29th, 1974. Earl Ross made history at Martinsville, becoming the first and still only Canadian-born driver to capture a win at NASCAR's top level. Behind the wheel of the 52 car for Junior Johnson, Ross outdrove legends like Richard Petty, Cal Yarborough, and Donnie Allison to take the checkered flag in the Old Dominion 500. It was an unforgettable and unlikely victory that still stands tall 50 years later. September 24th, 1989. While NASCAR's field was in Virginia, Dale Earnhardt, his mind was back home in North Carolina. Hurricane Hugo had torn through his property, leaving him to clear trees and repair fences before heading to Martinsville Speedway. With Dale delayed, the team called in local favorite Jimmy Hensley to qualify the iconic number 3. And Jimmy did not disappoint. Just minutes before Earnhardt arrived, Hensley shocked the field by putting the car on the pole. Coming to the end of episode 1 this week, so that means trivia answer time. This episode's question is, with NASCAR going to Martinsville this weekend, about how many Martinsville hot dogs are sold on a NASCAR weekend at Martinsville? Answer is 70,000 hot dogs on average are sold at Martinsville Speedway during a NASCAR weekend, a track staple. Now that's a lot of hot dogs. As always, we're sponsored by Magical Travel with Dave, aka Disney Dave Weicker, my father. He'll be able to help you with all your Disney and Universal vacation needs. He can be reached at disneydavew@verizon.net. Please make sure you follow all the Splash of Gas social medias for midweek and on-track updates. Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube are all Splash of Gas with Dave Weicker. Hope everyone has a great week. We'll talk to you again on part 2 of our Dega breakdown, an interview with Hendrick development driver Corey Day. Till next time, everybody, Splash of Gas out.